Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Quality music. And so it sounds like, just from what I'm listening to, rap has always been, or just creating music has always been part of you.
Yeah, for
so
sure.
It wasn't just like, I got laid off, what's gonna be my options? It sounds like you was creating music all throughout this time you were working, but just doing it on the side.
Right.
But now you had this opportunity, hey, I can take this full time. So it sounds like you always had that passion for rapping. When did that begin?
I want to say like since I was younger. When I was if I go back to, man, I said this at the listening session, like two things my mom introduced me to was Jesus and hip hop. You know,
shout out to your mom.
Yeah,
man.
right, man. like I said, like she's the OG MVP. You know what I mean? And so I remember coming up, and I've told this story a couple times recently, but I remember coming up, and it kind of started when I was in middle school. But I came up listening to what my mom was listening to, which was an array of music, but like her foundation was definitely hip hop. Biggie, Pac, Talib Kweli, A Tribe Called Quest, really A Tribe Called Quest, yo. Like, that was kind of like her steez, if you will. That introspective music that was becoming popular around that time. You know, the whole Native Tongues tribe, De La Soul, Tribe Called Quest, Jungle Brothers, like Queen Latifah and her crew. And so, and then you had like moments, you know, Biggie and Tupac, you know, had their introspective moments and all that stuff. So, and then I came up on gospel, you know, Fred Hammond, Marvin Sapp, the Winans. You know, I came up on gospel, but like also like jazz, and I got into classical music. But her foundation was hip hop, you know, and so I want to say around middle school, I remember having the you know, the boom box with the 5-disc changer. Everybody had them joints, you know what I'm saying? And I had like a cassette tape recorder, and it was a homie in middle school, like he rapped, but he also burned CDs for a lot of people. And I remember he gave me some CDs with some instrumentals on them. And he was like, he was like, hey man, like he gave me some like, you know, mixed CDs with like what was popular then, but then he was like, hey man, check these out too. Like, you know, like a lot of, he was like, I practice my raps on these. Like, you know, he gave them to me.
Yeah.
And so I remember I would take the CDs that that he gave me, and I can't remember the dude's name, man, but I just always knew he had burnt CDs all the time. You know what I mean? And he would sell them at school. But I remember going home, getting these CDs, writing raps to him, by, you know, and recording them by taking, like, putting the music in, playing the music from the boombox, right? And then taking a tape recorder.
Yeah.
And putting like rewritable. I would take some of my mom's tapes, and then some of them were blank, but I would put them in the tape recorder, press record, and then play the music from the boombox and like record my rap. So I was making mixtapes. I didn't even know it. Like, you know what I'm saying? And so, like, you know, my mom would check out like my raps or whatever, and point out the literary devices and all that I was using in my music. But even before rap, like, my mom was into poetry. So that's where my heavy influence of like lyricism comes from, is like being a writer first, being like understanding writing, creative writing first. And so yeah, it was like, I want to say I started kind of rapping like in middle school, you know, 6th, 7th grade. And then, you know, I put out something in high school, but here again, and I don't want to dive too much into this if you don't want to go into this, but like my old church discouraging that in high school. And I don't know, you know about G. Craig Lewis, right? You ever heard of him?
Nah.
So G. Craig Lewis was this popular dude. I don't know if he still is now. I don't keep up with him, but a minister or whatever. He had his DVD series. I think it was called like Holy versus Hip Hop, or the truth about hip hop. And in this series, he pretty much he took, you know, he used scripture and to point out that hip hop was evil and was satanic.
Yeah.
Very misused, man. And so he came to, and I was young, man, so I didn't know any better either.
Oh yeah.
He came to the church that I was attending and shared his series, and I remember people like burning their CDs. And I remember, I used to be, because Jay-Z's in my top 5, but I remember when I was in high school, if it was one clothing brand that people knew me for, it was Rockaware, man. And I remember I took a huge, like 2 huge bags of Rockaware clothing and brought them to the altar.
Oh, man.
And so, yeah, bro, like, and so dude had a lot of people bamboozled, man. And so I remember still cutting that CD. It was positive. It was talking about God, talking about Jesus, like all that.
Yeah.
And I remember my old pastor standing me up in front of like over 1,000 people and rebuking me publicly for doing a rap CD. And that was tough. And so I stopped. Like, little did I know he handled that all sorts of wrong. Just totally like not biblically.
Yeah.
Even if I was in sin, like that is not the first step.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That is not the first step. Clearly. And so I had stopped doing music. This was like my junior, senior. It was probably my senior year. Because I had a friend of mine, and how I cut the CD is like, I had a friend of mine who, this guy named Clayton, he had like a professional studio set up in his home. Yeah. You know? And so I stopped in, so after we cut the CD, like he allowed me to record there for free and everything. He cut the CD or whatever and put it out. And then ultimately it got me in trouble, quote unquote. And I had stopped doing music for a while, but I just, like, I want to say, even in college, man, I was like, but I came back around to it like later in college, like maybe a year into me being married, and I was like, man, this is in me. I can't, I can't let it go. But yeah, that's where it kind of started, is when I was like, middle school, because of my mom, man. It was really like, honestly, of course I had my own experience, like my own self-discovery of music, because I grew up, or I came up in like the bad boy era, the we ain't going, no, that whole era, you know what I'm saying, when the real Harlem Shake was popping. But yeah, like those are like my mom's musical influences. It was the first kind of like inspiring moments for me. So yeah. No,
I do want to go there. I think that's just hearing your journey, and just, it's almost like making so much sense, because I like to say I didn't grow up in the church. My parents went to church like on Sundays, but it's just something that you did. And I came out of a lot of, I don't necessarily call it charismatic, but that health and wealth type of deal. So not really good solid theology, any of that. I I wouldn't say that they had this big disdain for like hip hop, but I understand people who come out of that will be like, the drums are evil, it's summoning up the demons. So I'm familiar with all that.
Yeah, it was, and some
stuff.
of that stuff was kind of that deep though.
Yeah, so
kind of that deep.
So like, even with the last conversation I was having with KO and Emmanuel, it's like when people from the outside looking in on that, and it's like, yo, y'all are wilding as Christians, and that's the only representation of Christianity that they see, and it's like, whoa. And so once I did become saved and just realizing how to navigate through all of this and how difficult that is, and that's why I like applaud you, because it sounds like that pastor like really got something on you, and it's like, I can't be making this kind of music no more. And most people who are familiar, or even in this cultural context, it's like this big, thing with, I guess, and I'm not too huge into it, but once I got saved, I started learning more about it. Like, was it CHH or what, Christian hip hop or whatever you want to name it. That whole rabbit hole. I remember I forget, I don't know if I told this story already, but I remember I got saved. It was in college, and Carter 3 had came out, and so I was bumping Carter 3, and my friend was asking me like, "Yo, what is you listening to?" And I told him, he's like, "You listening to that, Lil Wayne, this and that third?" And he was like, "You need to listen to this," and he put me on the Shaolin. And I listened to Shaolin. I was like, oh my goodness, I ain't never heard nothing like this before. And if those who don't know who Shaolin is a phenomenal lyricist, phenomenal artist, but he is like heavy into theology, heavy, just very East Coast boom bap. Just like, if you love that, you'll love Shaolin, but it's geared to a specific audience, a specific genre. And after a while, you're like, I love Shaolin, but I don't want to listen to Shaolin all the time. You know what I'm saying? And even as you go on your walk, because it's like, I'm the same. That was my journey too. It's like, man, no more secular music, man. Gotta throw away my Wayne. Because I remember this song they had. It was Wayne, Fabulous, and Joel Santana. You ain't got nothing. Oh my! I think Alchemist produced it. Oh my! I could do it right now.
John was crazy.
I got 101. Okay, never mind. I'm sorry. But I went through those stages where it was like, yo, I can't listen to no more secular music. I gotta listen to all of this. So it was real big, heavy, like Lecrae, The Truth, Ambassador, all those dudes. Just what was it? 116 Click, Lamp Mode. All of these dudes I would listen to, and I still have a lot of love and respect for them. Right. But yeah, as I began to grow and learn, it's like, you can still have a respect for these secular artists, because my friend told me this before. He said, in any cultural context, you notice two things. You notice the image of God and the depravity of man. And so oftentimes we focus on the depravity of man, and we pretty much throw the baby out with the bathwater. Right. Where it's like, these dudes are incredible. I think it's a God-given talent that these dudes have to put words together, to put music together this way. Now, we can say, hey, I don't really rock with the content, but I think when we just say I don't rock with the content and just disregard all the arts, they trying to provide for their family. But you can't knock somebody for what all they know. Exactly. And it's like, we got to be there just to be like, yo, applaud them where applaud is due. Right. But at the same time, because nobody's going to want to listen to you if all you say, you're not supposed to do this, you're not supposed to do that. Well, it's like, no, applaud them. These dudes are phenomenal art. I would remember like watching movies that would have nothing to do with Jesus and just be taken away like, yo, this is beautiful. Yeah. This is incredible. And that's what the Imago Dei is. Like, we see God's image in people who don't even recognize it. And I think we need to honor that. And art is one of the ways. Yeah. I say this, I say, what's the greatest art you've ever seen? And most people, they'll list something. I say, you the greatest art. You as an individual. Right. Because what does that point to? If you the greatest art, it points to an artist. Right. And we don't even catch these things. And so because we made in the image of God, we can display art. And one of the ways we display art is through our music. Right. And so I'm fascinated because you got through that journey where it's like very legalistic, very like gotta have, and that was a big struggle within, the CHH, where it's like, are you a Christian rapper or a rapper who's Christian? And all these things. And so when I hear that, Pastor Rapper, I'm like, I'm already got the antennas like, oh man, we gonna have somebody rapping Jesus all the time. And then when you hear Pat, you're like, oh snap. And it's far from that. And it's like, and I loved it so much because that's what I want to just honor, the artistry and the craft. Yeah. And I think you don't have to be overtly Christian, but it's gonna naturally come out you. But you don't have to like, did I say Jesus enough times?
Right.
Because if I'm honest with you, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't even know if you said Jesus in the album.
I did.
How many times?
Once.
One time. So it's like, but if somebody knows you, they know how central that is to your life.
Right.
And it's like, I will respect somebody more if they don't say Jesus in their music, but you see it reflected in their life. Yeah. But they say Jesus 50 million times and you don't see it in their life.
Yeah. Yeah, man. No, you right, man. You right. I like, I'll say this too, the point that you brought up about just admiring art. I can't remember the name of the book. I have it too. I just can't remember the name of it. But it's about like art in the context of Christianity in the Bible and stuff. And they pointed out a few passages in the scripture where the scripture was plainly describing, I think, a temple and just how beautiful it was and how it was decorated. And the architecture for that. Yeah. And it wasn't like anything deep. Well, it was deep because it's art, but it wasn't like anything. It pointed to God for sure, but it wasn't like anything talking about sin, or it wasn't something that Jesus said. It was simply like passage admiring how beautiful something was constructed. Yeah. And I think that in itself should say to us, there's nothing wrong with making art like that. And I even think that, like, and this is another thing that people are thrown off by, I think sometimes when they hear my music or even just knowing me, that, I can talk about Jesus or say something God glorifying in the album, but then say shit in my music, or whatever else, and I could use it in such a way where it's not pointing to anything derogatory, and if anybody knows that, or something that our current, you and I attend the same church, our current pastor, when he heard my 2016 album, like, he said that to me. He was like, none of the profanity that you have in your album was used in a derogatory way. Yeah. You know what I mean? It like, it was done tastefully. Even in this album, because I'm pretty sure we'll talk about it, but Paranoia, I think this is the only, like, probably project that somebody's heard. No, I'm not saying from anybody, but from myself, where I drop the F-bomb. But I do it in a way that's not, it's not talking about, somebody girl or what, you know what I mean? Because I think that's always like the reference, what I'm saying? It's talking about somebody girl or whatever the case is. But yeah, so like, I think that there's a beauty in just, like you said, just acknowledging that somebody is good at doing something. All of the content we may not agree with, however, we like you say, like, we still gotta give people their flowers. Like, you can't just be a hater just because all of the content, what I'm saying, isn't whatever. Like, we still gotta be like, oh, yo, that person is dope. They could do whatever really well. Even the ones that may not be glorifying something negative. Yeah. And it's just good music or good art. Like, oh, we're not supposed to stay away from that. We're not supposed to listen to that. You know what I'm saying? Just because it's not, and I think I got I'll say I never categorized myself as CHH. Never. I think I just got roped into it because of just how my music was. Yeah. And I just ended up saying, oh, I do whatever. I do Christian hip hop, whatever you want to call it. Like, that was always my thing. Yeah. And so, and that's a whole nother topic of conversation that we have to have. But man, like, I'll be honest, like, some of that stuff is corny, man. Yeah. Some of it is corny. Yeah. And I think especially because it's like put in front of you as a replacement for the, you know, quote unquote secular music. You know what I mean? It's marketed to you that way in some instances. So yeah, man. I really appreciate that. Like that, what you said, like that's 100% right, man.
Yeah, because like I said, the first time, because I heard I'm learning to live in a day, and I don't want to, like, you know, I bought it. You know, I want to make sure I support. I want to make sure,
appreciate that, man.
I bought it. I've got it in my phone, and I'm listening to it, and it's like, because you're so conditioned, you know, if someone, you know, has faith, especially Christian faith. And we saw this, and I really did not want to talk about it, but talk about it in the sense, in this light, where Ye comes out with his album, explicitly, you know, Jesus is littered all throughout it.
Right.
And so I've seen a lot of comments like, you know, this is somewhat the paradigm of how you should do, you know, Christian hip hop, where it has to be explicitly, explicitly, you know, Jesus in every bar, no cursing, none of that. And then I listened to your album, and it's like, because I've been so conditioned, someone who I know, we go to the same church, is in a leadership position,
right,
having a song, and I hear cursing, but it's like, it was almost refreshing. You know, it was like, yes, you know, because like I said, I didn't grow up in this churchy context. Like I love to say I embrace the gospel, you know. Yeah. And so once I heard this, like, yo, I was gonna go to school, because I always knew I wanted to teach. I wanted to teach math, and then I heard the gospel and changed my major to biblical studies. My wife worked at the school, so I got my master's. It was like, oh, I don't want to be a pastor. Yeah. You know, I would much rather teach on a collegiate level. Oh, you got to get a doctoral degree.
Yeah.
So I came here, got my THM, Lord willing, graduate in December, and hopefully I can work towards a doctorate. So I have a second master's, and it's like, yo, this God is just moving me in this direction. But I'm a cat from Brooklyn, like, going to school in Lynchburg, Virginia. Like, what's going on here? Now I'm back in North Carolina pursuing a degree, and it's like God is just literally ordering my steps. But I was always me, beautiful. When I was like, yo, I can look back and see the people in my life who probably look at me like, yo, you're crazy. I was the furthest thing from Christianity growing up, and it's like, this is me now. Right. And so it's like, we always ask, like, why me when something negative happened, but it's like, yo, why me? Right. Especially when I see all my family members, my father, you know, God bless him, where it's like in and out of jail, where you would look at my life, be like, yo, you shouldn't be here. Right. You should not be here. And so when you become saved and you become in the church, and you just realize it's like this Christian culture that I just kind of like rebel against, because I hate it so much. Where it's just like, oh, it just makes me sick. Where it's like, and I don't want to necessarily make this biblical argument for cursing or anything like that, but when you look in the Psalms, bro, the Psalms are so beautiful. It's like and even our pastor preached on these imprecatory Psalms, where, yo, they're preaching curses towards the enemies, bro. It's like, nobody want to talk about that. It's like David is upset, like, curse them, dash their babies' heads against the rocks, like, dude. Or even like Isaiah. And like I said, I don't want to use like these cliche lines that people do, but Isaiah says your righteousness is like filthy rags. In the Hebrew, the filthy rags is like a feminine rag. Right. So it's like, or even Jesus.
That's a battle bar.
Or even like Jesus, he says you whitewash tombs, you brood of vipers. Like in English, we don't realize that. That's mad offensive, bro. Yeah, it is. To tell like these elite religious people, you brood of vipers, you whitewash tombs. Right. So it's like, when we look in scripture, number one, it wasn't written in English for all you people. Like, it was written in Hebrew and Greek. So the English words were not even invented. So we like making rules where there is no rules, because I know most people are gonna quote, let nothing be, have your tongue be seasoned with salt, nothing unfruitful come out. So you shouldn't be cursing, and this, that, and the third. And it's like, yo, I could curse you out without even cursing.
Exactly.
Do you not realize that?
And then what Paul, like, I think Pastor used that example. Paul, he said, everything that I've done before Christ, I count as a pile of dung.
Yeah, you know, and what that dung means?
Right, when he translated it, it comes out to shit.
Bro, I got a better one for you. And again, I'm not trying to make these biblical arguments, but Elijah and the prophets of Baal, I don't know how to pronounce it, they was challenging each other. And so it's like, Elijah's like, yo, God is gonna light my sacrifice on fire. Let's see what happens with yours. And so call out to your God. And so they call out to the God.
I remember
and nothing happens. And Elijah's like, yo, what's your God doing? Is he just chilling? Is he on the toilet? And it's like, but he doesn't say is he on the toilet.
Right, exactly.
It's more explicit than that.
Exactly.
So
Yeah. Thoughts cast out in the middle of the ocean. Long John still with a pill, got a grill, come a pill, giving will to the notion. Waves don't feel every kill, just a real when you deal with the spill of emotion. A side to reveal, inside of the chill, the cry giving pride for the heel. Arrived just in time at the pier to conceal. Why consider every passive person when your back is hurting, but the knife's gone. Days are darker when you practice purpose, while you stacking burdens, but your light drawn. It was better back in grade school. Lemonade with the fade, niggas stay cool. And all my friends came in game when I played too. But mama gave me the way to evade fools, and that's true. Social butterfly with his wings clipped. Used to be the life of the party. Used to give a smile with some meaning. Now I give a smile for the party. Used to find peace every season. Now I find peace, but it's hardly. Now I find peace, but it's hardly. Now I find peace, but it's hardly. Happy moments come and go. Real moments come and go. Still moments come and go. Like the waves, they just come and go. They just come and go. Before I met my wife,